To give you an overview of our project, which is titled the Community-Based Natural Resource Management Enhanced Direct Access Project, which was funded by GCF. And we are actually proud that this was the first EDA project that was funded by GCF. So before I continue with our presentation, I'd just like this opportunity to introduce our speakers as well as our panelists. I've already introduced myself. I'm Bernadette with the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia. And I'm joined here by two colleagues of mine, Ms. Salome Naivela, as well as Ms. Johanna Hainana, who has worked on the project during its implementation. We also have Ms. Toini Amutenya, who's representing Triple Capital, which is a private sector institution in Namibia that has been supporting the project mainly with compiling lessons learned after its implementation. We are also pleased to invite members of the Conservancy who are here, and Ms. Toini Amutenya, who will just introduce them briefly.
Thank you, Bernadette. As per the role that has been presented to me, of course, is to introduce our panel, the speakers or the guest speakers from the CBO, the community-based organization that benefited from the Enhanced Direct Access Project. We are joined by Ms. Erika Njavera. She's the chairperson for Omuramba Wambinda Conservancy in Omaheke region of Namibia. We are also joined by Jackson Hinjua. He's a supporting entity from Odonahi Conservancy in Ochwentozupa region, also the part of Namibia. And then, of course, lastly, by Max Musongo, who is representing the support entity for Liquaterra Conservancy or Community Forest in Kavango East region. Thank you, Bernadette.
So much. Thank you, Toini, for introducing our speakers. At this point in time, I'll hand over to Ms. Johanna, who will share then some information from the project.
Thank you, Bernadette, and thank you, colleagues, for having us. My name is Johanna Hainana, and I'll be joined in this presentation by my colleague Salome Naivela, and we'll be giving you a brief overview of the CBNRM EDA project as introduced earlier by Ms. Shalumbu. This is a very dear project to us at the fund because it's not only the first of its kind in Namibia, but in the whole world, since it's the first EDA project implemented under the GCF EDA portfolio. So I'll be giving you, okay, just hold on. Okay, I'll be giving you an overview of the project itself, its history and key milestones, as well as its impact. And my colleague Salome will be taking you through the lessons and the challenges that we have encountered as we've been implementing this project. Okay, a brief background on the project. The project it was derived from the Vulnerability Assessment Report done by the Ministry of Environment, Tourism and Forestry in Namibia sometime in 2012. And upon the EIF accreditation to the GCF in 2016, it was tasked to develop a proposal which aligns to develop a proposal to the Green Climate Fund to just source funding to help our vulnerable rural communities that are residing in communal conservancies and community forests. And therefore, it was approved in 2016 at the GCF board meeting in 2016. But because of procurement as well as a GCF conditions that was attached to the approval, the project could only commence in 2017. And that's why we have a duration of 2017 to 2022. It's a 5-year project. It ran from 2017 to 2022 with a project budget of $10 million US. And then the fund manager was the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia as an accredited entity to the GCF. And in terms of institutional arrangements, of course, the government of the Republic of Namibia has been the main receiver of the fund through the from the Green Climate Fund, and through the national designated entity, which is the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, as the NDA, and then the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia as an accredited entity that will be overseeing, or that has overseeing, that was responsible for overseeing the project implementation unit. And then the project management unit was also being spearheaded in terms of administrative oversight by the project steering committee. And then the proceedings or the beneficiaries was our gazetted communal conservancy and community forest in Namibia. As indicated earlier, the project was approved at the 14th GCF board meeting that took place in October 2016, and then it could only commence officially by in 2017, where a signing of the funded activity agreement was done. The project launch happened, as well as the setting up of the PMU, and then inceptions of regional inception workshops, where we could the project would present the project objectives as well as the targeted beneficiaries. In 2018, a regional training workshop was done. This was really needed in order for our beneficiaries to be trained on all of the project templates that they will need to fill in order for them to access funding from this project. And then in the same year, a first call for proposal. I will dive into the call later on as I talk about the activities of a project was done. And then in 2019, there were award ceremonies that were done in terms of projects that have been completed, the sub-grant projects. I'll also talk about them as I go on through the presentation. We had several project handovers, sub-grants project handovers, and then the second call for proposal. And then in 2020, we had some project handover. And then since the project was in its midterm implementation, an interim evaluation was also done, and the report was submitted to GCF. And then after that, the remaining 2.5 years, which is 2021 up to 2023, I'll mention later on also why we had to move to jump from 2022 to 2023, where we had to carry out the remainder of the project activities. Okay, basically the project main objectives was to create resilience among our rural communities in terms of them becoming resilient to the effects of climate change. So by doing that, we had the two main components, which the first one was capacity building and community support. We needed to train and also just create climate change awareness among our communities, our vulnerable communities, also teach them what they could do in order for them to adapt to the effects of climate change. And then the second component was us giving, or the project assisting them with small grants that could help them set up infrastructures that could assist them adapt to the effects of climate change. So in terms of the project rollout, in the first component, the slide there is just indicating the main activities that have taken place, where we had developed posters and brochures to complement the component one of capacity building and community support. We also had various site visit, trainings, inception meetings where they validated the project work plans and such. And as a matter of creating awareness also to our stakeholders, the project had to develop a website, which was embedded and hosted on the EIF, the institution's website. And then a high-level grant awarding ceremony also took place, where the Minister of Environment, Forestry and Tourism also had to give or award some of the projects that were initially granted in 2019. A groundbreaking ceremony that took place in some of the centers that we had to put up in the Lusese Conservancy in the Zambezi region, and then handover ceremonies for some of the completed projects that took place in the various years from 2021 up to 2023. Okay. Also, regional training workshops took place that could also, as indicated, train it was a prerequisite for all our grantees or our beneficiaries to be trained on all our templates, on what they will be required to do in order for them to apply for funding from the project. So the training took place in clustered training workshops that took place across the country. 5 regional cluster training workshop took place. And then because of the gender mainstreaming aspect that the GCF requested, we had to take or document the number of the people trained and, of course, segregating them between men and women, and then the impact thereof. And above that, the project exceeded the expected result, because we were actually just looking at training about 80 community-based organizations, but then we ended up training about 155 as initially set for the project. And then the main another component and another output under component 1 was for us, for the project to review the existing event book system that the community use in order for them to do their local game counts and such, to embed a climate change aspect in it. So that was a consultancy that the project had to consult the ministry as well as the other stakeholders that are in, and then also look for a consultant that has been developing this event book system within the community-based organization, whereby we had to recruit now the NACSO, Natural Resource Working Group, to develop these posters as well as parameters that would be embedded in the event book system. So initially we're looking at piloting this aspect into 30 CBOs, but then the projects are passed it to about 33 CBOs that had piloted the project, this component, and then they are continuing with this, enrolling this with other CBOs, because we have about 88 community-based organizations that are gazetted in Namibia. Okay, and then the main component, about 90% of the $10 million I mentioned earlier, was allocated to this component, which is the component 2, the grant facility, where we were looking at awarding grantees under 3 investment windows. And the 3 investment windows are climate resilient agriculture, climate proof infrastructures, as well as ecosystem-based adaptation. So we were, because of the EIF establishment, its mandate was to provide funding already to community-based organizations. So the project just adopted what the granting operation of the institution, where we had to review its management structures as well as processes to speak to the GCF requirements, as well as align them to our activities. As indicated earlier also, we had 2 calls of proposal. Initially, the first call ended in July 2018, and then the second call ended on the 1st of May 2019. From the first call, we managed to award about 19 grants to a total tune of 86 million Namibian dollars that will transfer to around about 7 million USDs, if I'm not mistaken. And then and then in the second call, we awarded about 12 grantees that could award, that could total to about 23 million Namibian dollars. That is also equivalent to 1.5 million, if I'm not mistaken, in US dollars. The reason was for the project to ensure that it's equitable, fair share of the resources within the country. And therefore, in the second call, we were looking at the regions that would not benefit in the first call, and that's why they are what and also depending on the amount that remained in the component, in the grants component. In the 3 investment windows that we're looking at, the climate resilient agriculture window was mainly looking at introduction of innovative resilient farming systems such as hydroponic systems and greenhouses with drip irrigation technology. as well as backyard, focusing on vegetable production and livestock breeding schemes. And then under climate-proof infrastructures, we were looking at projects that or households that were addressing their vulnerable water needs, or the reasons that most of our beneficiaries are finding themselves residing closer to national parks as well as areas with wildlife. So we're looking at infrastructures that could help them adapt to maybe setting up, say, for example, fencing that would avoid livestock or wild animals coming to their gardens, as well as introduction of renewable energy technologies and water saving measures. And then under EBA, as ecosystem-based adaptation project, it was cross-cutting. We were looking at projects that were looking at addressing interventions that are across the landscapes, as well as things such as fire management interventions, as well as forest inventories, and improving grazing and land rent within their respective community-based organizations. And just to show you on the far right, my far right, we could see that our intervention would benefit about 9,527 indirect beneficiaries, about 7,134,000 hectares of the land are being effectively managed. Those are some of the milestones that the project could at least derive from the grants component. And then that in terms of statistics, and that is just a graph indicating that the project created a total of about 1,147 green jobs, of which 40% of this are female and 60% are male. Issues of gender mainstreaming and attaining gender equality at an African context is very, very what do I call it? It's very difficult. It's because of the norms, the cultural norms and such. And that's some of the challenges that my colleague will talk about in the next presentation. Okay. And then we had a supporting component under this project, which was the monitoring of project sites, as well as the oversight of the project implementation. So as indicated earlier, the project was had a project structure, which is an oversight structure, which we call the project steering committee. And before that, we also had two subcommittees that could review all our project implementation timeframe, and as well as activities, which is the fund management committee, as well as the technical advisory panel. These committees were also responsible of reviewing the proposals that we have gotten from our respective beneficiaries in terms of reviewing the proposal, making sure that what we are funding is really speaking to what the GCF requires and what the project objectives are trying to address. And then we had monitoring and evaluation, as well as financial management and reporting training workshops that were done the successful grantees were trained on M&E as well as our financial management training just before, immediately after they've been awarded the grants. And then, as indicated, quarterly monitoring and evaluation visits, as well as verifying of project implementations, have been conducted throughout the 5-year implementation. And then an interim report was submitted successfully to GCF, and then an independent evaluation report towards the end of the project that was done in 2023. This is because the project received a no-cost extension because of the delays that it encountered earlier in 2016. Okay, and that is just a highlight of the project achievements, just basically what I've highlighted already. In terms of component 1, those are the milestones that the project has impacted. And then component 2, we have awarded a total of 31 grants, and then they were all successfully handed over. A total of 140 million Namibian dollars was dispersed. Everything that was allocated to the grants have been dispersed successfully to them. And then later on, my colleagues will also be showing slides to indicate on the pictures of what has been implemented at the project. And the 720,000 that is Namibian dollars that is been indicated there is just the money that our communities could save as means of us replacing the diesel fuel that they normally used with the solar or renewable energy that we've incorporated on the borehole rehabilitation. And then in terms of M&E, 6 annual performance reports has been successfully submitted and approved by the GCF. 6 unqualified. The 6 is an additional year that the project has requested a no-cost extension to the GCF. That's why it's amounting to 6 reports. And then the final independent evaluation report has been also successfully submitted and approved by the GCF. Okay, I'll just hand over to my colleague to take you through the lessons learned and the challenges encountered.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Salome Naivela. So I was part of the team that was implementing the Enhanced Direct Access project. Like my colleagues said, I'll be just doing some retrospective in terms of what worked well, the successes, the challenges that we encountered when we implementing this CBNRM EDA project. So in terms of procurement, we included a disbursement schedule in the memorandum of agreement. So we had an independent engineering firm just to make sure that these payments are subsequent, these conditions that are subsequent to these payment tranches, so that before we disperse the next tranche, the engineers have okayed the materials that we procured and also make sure that what was installed on the ground is up to quality. And there was the 10% that we hold on to just make sure that they procured all the right materials and everything just was installed correctly. So because these were already existing CBOs that we're working with, they're already existing standard operating procedures that were recognized by the Ministry of Environment and Tourism. It was quite easy to work with these CBOs, but obviously everything has challenges. We also embedded a joint venture concept in all business ventures. By this, I mean there were some projects that requested for infrastructure such as your hydroponic systems and greenhouse infrastructures. Because some of these infrastructure were specialized and new to the CBOs, they needed at least somebody to take them through how to operate these infrastructures and also the business element of it, how to share the profits, how to market their produce. So we encourage them and also assist them to establish that joint venture element with recognized entrepreneurs in the country, and at least for a period of 5 years or 10 years, depending on what they are comfortable with, after they are comfortable to implement this project on their own. Another success or what worked well was also training of the monitoring and evaluation and financial reporting templates. This my colleague has already touched on. There were also an element of supporting entities. So what we did when we were introducing the project to the CBOs is we encouraged them, those that have a know-how on how to draft these proposals, they could approach somebody that already knows how to draft proposal and have implemented projects of this nature, just to assist them with project implementation, report writing, but also transferring the lesson learned to them and just making sure that if there's another enhanced direct access project that comes in the future, they'll be able to implement this on their own. Okay, moving on to other successes is also, we also make sure that we engage the grantees with regular interaction, having conflict management resolutions on site, just to make sure that we have regular interactions with them. If there is any delays that is happening on their side, we try to come up with remedies to solve this and also make sure that there's no delays in terms of our agreement with the GCF. Okay, the challenges that we encountered was because of these specialized equipments that some grantees were implementing on their side, there were some elements that we didn't take into account when we're signing the agreements, like the import duties of these infrastructures. So that caused some of delays in terms of who was going to be responsible for this funding in terms of getting these infrastructures in the country. But yeah, that later we solved that. But maybe just for those countries that are trying to implement this kind of projects, just to make sure that that is also included in at approval stage before signing the agreement. In terms of sustainability, that I already mentioned, the including of the joint ventures, there was also kind of lack of ownership and dedication from the CBO side. And this I mean because these CBOs are used to getting this funding, and then non-NGOs implementing these projects on their behalf, they quite struggle to take ownership of this project. And where they took ownership, because like I said, these are already existing CBOs with a standard operating procedures. There was, so we realized that when the existing structure, like the project management committee was going out because their term is lapsed maybe, or some, or yeah, or they were, yeah, if their terms has lapsed, there was no proper handover to the next structure, and it was also not clear if they're gonna be the one to doing the whole implementation, or if they're gonna pass on to the next structure because their term has lapsed as part of the Conservancy Management Committee. Another challenges that we encountered was infights between, this is what I've been talking about, the infights between the conservancy management plans, committees, and the project management committees and the supporting entities. The CBO felt like the supporting entities were maybe stepping in on their toes, taking ownership of their project, but really was just for them to support them in implementing and also just pass on their lessons to them. Another one is we were also having delays in the submission of financial and progress report, that also was the reason that attributed to us asking for a no-cost request from the GCF. And then COVID-19 also took some effect because we couldn't do on-site monitoring and evaluations for these grantees to disperse the next tranche that was and then there were also some theft and vandalism of infrastructures. So before we handed over some project, we realized that there's some infrastructures that were vandalized. So that was kind of a challenge because the funding already depleted. Now, how do we move on with regards to this? Maybe the other countries or organizations that want to take up this, maybe they can just include an element of insurance, or yeah, just to cover those kind of defects. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Johanna and Salome, for taking us through the overview of the project. Must appreciate the work that the colleagues have really put into this project, it being a first really for GCF and also for Namibia. And now I would like to invite our panelists from the conservancies. I'll start with ladies first, Ms. Erica, and then I'll move on to Mr. Jackson and then Mr. Max, just to provide an overview from your conservancy in terms of what your project was all about and what worked really well. Ms. Erica, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erika Nchavera, as you heard from my introduction, and I'm presenting the Omuramba Conservancy and Community Forest. Our project was about bush to feed and borehole rehabilitation. We have done a lot. We got the EIF fund. Then we have drilled. There was some boreholes which was rehabilitated. at 2 places in Omuramba. It was now at Ochongarangombe and what is the other place as well? I've forgotten the place as well. I will come back with a place name. The problem that what the problem is, what we have to address on this. It was like we have to improve water and food security. It's why we got this project, so that our water and food security can be improved by getting our boreholes, which was brought to the community, and that people got also some bush to feed machines that now they are creating for animals to feed, and sort of. Must I go on or must I?
Yes,
Hello?
Ms. Erica, yes, we can hear you clearly. Thank you. Just really what worked really well.
What worked really well was now, apart from the boreholes, which was now successfully from the diesel to the from the diesel pump bowl to the solar pump bowls in our villages, which was installed, because people they were struggling a lot by these boreholes engine for diesel engine boreholes, but now at least they got this solar pump, and they are not giving out a lot of funds which they used to give to the diesel engine. And for the bush to feed crush machines, just bring income to our conservancies and community forest. As Omuramba, like in Omahage, where the low conservancies that didn't even generate money, but now at least that we got the bush to crush to feed machines, that is now at least bringing funds in a conservancy. Even that we got some truck or one tractor and a trailer. Whenever the community want to use the tractor, they can use it for a certain price of that they have been put for that value. And the challenges. We had the challenges about the project itself.
Ms. Erica, we will just we'll touch on the challenges in the next round. For now,
Okay.
we'll hand over to Mr. Jackson, who can also just give us a brief overview and also explain what really worked well on his conservancy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernadette and the whole team. Yes, I'm from Chodan Jupa, and the very best thing that worked out is that initially when we started this project, we were in a drought period, and we wanted that, you know, our areas are encroached with bush species, invader bush species, and our rangeland became poorer because, you know, productive wise, it could not produce or it could not provide for the animals or livestock that the farmers are having in the conservancy area. So the whole idea was to see how we can thin our rangeland, so that in doing so we bring back the grass species that could help with the livestock and sustaining the livelihood of the communities, and also creating a resilient community where the invader bush species could then turn into animal fodder that the farming community can then use to also supplement and keep their animals and sustain their livelihood. So the very good thing that worked out is that drought has not really left us. We are still in the drought. The issue of climate change effects is still around us. It has impacted us negatively. Now that the project was funded under IDA, the community are able now to access animal fodder within a very good radius of distance through the conservancy. The feed that they can access, it's also at a very reasonable, affordable price that the farmers can afford. And during our implementation, we had pilot harvesting points, mobile points at 4 different villages, where we harvested or thinned an area of close to 10 hectares. And already, when you go back to those pilot sites, you could see the difference. An area that has been thinned and an area that is encroached, you could see the difference in terms of the vegetation species, the grass species that are starting to germinate. So this has really worked well, and it has really shown and impacted heavily into the mindset of our farmers. They have realized that if we are to thin our rangeland, we will benefit through fodder bush feed production, but also in the long run, we are able to rehabilitate our rangeland so that it will increase in its carrying capacity, which will then help in ensuring that our animals are well fed, and then simultaneously farmers are able to get better prices, which they can then be able to sustain their community. So the project has really done a lot, and our focus was that it becomes a long-term mitigating effect to the community, and that is really what is happening. Now that we have received less rain, there is now more that the Conservancy is doing to ensure that there is enough water available to the farmer. So that has been a really good impact onto our rangeland and the livelihood of our communities.
Right, thank you so much, Jackson, for that. I'll invite Mr. Max to just share also his overview as well as what really worked well for your Conservancy service.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Max Musongo. I'm an employee of Comeho representing the Quaterera Community Forest. Now, the project that we had implemented is unleashing the potential of climate change strategies for the Quaterera. Now, in this, we had overarching objectives that we had to implement. That is the scaling up of Moringa, value addition marketing, and capacity for rainwater harvesting. Those are some of the things that we had to deal with, including also a borehole rehabilitation. Now, in this process, because of the climate change, as is alluded earlier, the whole world is facing climate change, and that's for also in the Kavango East region, we had to implement something that was going to ensure that the communities were going to adapt to something that would sustain the communities and also the environment at large. One of our objectives was to implement the planting of moringa trees within the forest of the Quaterera community, establishment of 60 home gardens. And these home gardens then included that the community, those beneficiaries that benefited from this project were to be trained in water harvesting, or should I say rainwater harvesting, at their households. As we all know, the future for agriculture is more on household-based gardening. Therefore, we had implemented this objective as a means to start and change the mindset of the people that are in the community of Quaterera and also the region at large. Because once you see your neighbor doing something, obviously you would be anxious to know what exactly it is that you're doing, and that's dispersing the information and the knowledge that is required for the community to thrive. So the 60 home gardens were then trained into rainwater harvesting through their home structures. They were provided with the equipment, the training, and the tools to do so and be able to harvest the water. Also, rehabilitating a borehole that is within the community that could provide 70,000 liters of water to the communities. Now, part of this water is then injected into the 10-hectare moringa garden or the plantation of moringa, which then helps to increase the sustainability of the community. As we all know, moringa is a product that focuses on a number of things: animal feeds, human consumption as a vegetable, and also as a medicinal plant. It has been evident that the community of the Quaterera is enjoying or reaping the benefits of this plant, both in food consumption, medicine, or food for the animal, and also as a form of medicine, including cosmetics, because you have also moringa oil incorporated within that project as well. So what worked well was that we did a lot within that aspect, what we have set out to do as a community or the implementing agency, all together with the community forest. We did implement a number of things, although delayed due to the fact that the project started off in September 2019, just as we're entering the era of COVID. A number of things were restricted, as we all know that there was not much mobility of a lot of things from one region to the next, so that delayed a lot. And yes, as the pictures have been shown, you have seen the packages of the moringa powder, the tea, and the oil. So these are some of the products that were the end results of the project implementation of the 10 hectare of moringa garden. We also had to procure a number of machineries that made it possible for us to produce the semi-finished or finished products that are then listed as part of the project outcome. Other than that, the knowledge transfer that has come across the community, in the past, you had people traveling about 30 kilos to come to Rundu to just come and buy a tomato. As we stand or as we speak, the project is able to produce, and the surplus of this home gardens then is then sold to the community, those are willing to buy, and also introduce a system that was used in the past of barter, where you have one is able to supply cabbage, the other one is able to supply tomato, so they do the barter trade, and that helps the community to eliminate some of the malnourished that we are facing within the community or within the region as at large. As it is known that Kavango is one of the regions which has a high rate of malnourished children and also high rate of poverty. So this project actually aided a large number of people, both in terms of employment. When this 10 hectare garden was implemented, it was a community, it is a community-based thing, and therefore it meant that the community had to be employed to do the cleaning and also planting of the 10 hectare of moringa. So that then translates into the benefits that went into all the community, into the whole community, not just those that are involved in the project, as to say the community forest members, but the community at large, including the indirect beneficiaries. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to the speakers for that insightful information. In conclusion, really, I would just like to give you each at least a second to speak to the challenges as well as to the recommendations that you can make to our viewers, our listeners online, given that so many people are interested in piloting this modality. I'll start with Max, and then I'll hand over to Jackson, and then we can end with Ms. Erica. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks again for the platform. Some of the challenges that we faced apart from the COVID effects that we are all accustomed to was that there was no vehicle for the community forest to use, and the mobility or the accessibility of them to get one within this community was actually a very difficult thing as the first one. The second one would be that, once the government has gazetted the labor rate, hour rate for casual workers or farm workers. So when you are moving into a community, it is advisable that you try to get a feel or a price range of how that community prices theirs. Because the challenges we had was that we bring the gazetted price and the community itself has a different price that is derived by the community itself. So that made it very difficult to then quickly or smoothly transition into doing the jobs that needed to be done. You have to come back to the table and discuss and do all these things and try to find an amicable solution and balance of what they have from what is gazetted in order for you to achieve the objective. That's the first one. And then you have issues where the supply is unable to carry out or to deliver the material after procurement. And that brought a lot of delays into the objective or the activities of the EDA to accomplish the set objectives in the time that it is stipulated to be achieved. The third one is having a community forest or a conservancy that understands from the point of a supporting entity that understands that most of us as supporting entities, we are result driven. So it's not a matter of you want to do it this way, but what we have set out to do, what we have proposed to the grant provider and what is required to be done. That is one of the challenges that you would come to face because you are set on delivering a target objective. When you come to the community, they have a different feel or they want to do it differently. So what made it difficult was that they feel like you are trying to be the owner of the project when you are just there to assist. So that made it slightly difficult, and you had to go back calling the EIF guys to come and have a meeting, and all that process takes time. You have to set up a meeting, call all the stakeholders, the councillors, the head women, and everybody else, the community members. That brings a lot of infighting in between, also within the members. Some, as it has been alluded that, you know, some of these community forest or conservancy members, they have usually a period of 5 years. And after these 5 years, they're supposed to elect new people. So this was some of the issues that the members do not want to feel that the management need to change hands due to the fact that the people that applied for the grant are to leave and somebody else has to do the project. So all that brought some challenges to us as a implementing agent. The third one would be really just the mobility. In my instance, we have a community forest that also deals with cut lines and borders of the communities. When we have the drought or dry spells that we are having currently in the country, you have areas where you have fires breaking out. Now, some of these villages are like 20 kilometers away from where this community forest office is. They do not have any means of movement or mobility. They do not have horses. They do not have donkeys. They do not have a tractor. They do not have a vehicle. So that delays the work of these people to go and aid or fight the fire and not to interrupt any of the vegetation that's within the community. With that being said, I believe if we have to look at all the challenges, it might take longer than required. So I will give the floor to the other panelists to also give their contribution. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Max. Jackson, we can just have a second to really edit on challenges and then recommendations.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. One of the challenge that is in my eye as a supporting entity, and I think Max rightly put it, that as supporting entities, we are looking at sustainable impact. And in terms of sustainable impact, you would want to see at the end of the project implementation that the CBOs takes full ownership, and as alluded to by Salome, that they dedicate their efforts to making sure that they take these actions forward. So in my case, yes, we had a very good journey, but then comes now that as part of the constitution, there has to be a leadership change, and then it's like the wheel is revived. I mean, I mean, you need to restart again with the whole process. But then by then the prayer was coming to an end. So I think we need to, within the conservancies, the setup of the communities, they need to look at ensuring that continuity is there, that they don't really look at, looking at new people, but, instilling or mixing with all the committee members so that things are continuing. Things are not like they are starting from the beginning, because at the end of the day, that also disturbs the sustainability impact that you would want to see. But I think the issue of ownership The projects are not for the implementing agencies, but it's for the conservancies. But some of them tend to not really dedicate their efforts into making sure that they are fully part of the process. You only find it's only few that will be part of the process, which is not what we really want. So that is one key thing. And I think also as part of our project formulation, when we did the proposal, we had a component of training. And this component was more to ensure that the supporting entity, apart from technical support, we are also able to have concrete trainings and manuals that we could develop that these people can take or can live with. And if there's any guys that comes in new ones, then they can still have these manuals that they can go through in terms of how to to move this project forward. So I think in terms of the funding component as a recommendation, I think apart from looking at the actual implements and support directly to the project, I think the component of capacity building, I know at the project level that was rightfully done, but in terms of the implementation level at the CBO level, I think we need to incorporate a very good intensive capacity training program that could develop the capacity of these people to move forward. And the other thing is in terms of when you are setting up a project, you are looking at the vastness of the area, and some of these conservancy or community forest areas are very vast. Even so that in your proposal you put in looking at so that you can at least reach, if not all, at least more than 60% of the area. But then it tends to that at the review level, funds are sort of some of these components are taken out. But at the end of the day, in terms of the sustainable impact that you want to see, like in our case, we only had 4 pilot sites while we wanted more than that. You would have an impact, but it will be very minimal, even though you could still show it. So, but now that you want to move this thing forward and ensure that farmers have got these machines are actually available, you are sort of limited to only fewer equipments that you could support. That could not be enough for the whole area. So one would really recommend that maybe the review panels relook into the vastness of the area, and when they determine the funding, if it's not the full that is requested, maybe also bear that in mind. All in all, I think the EDA project really came at the right time to our conservancy, and it's already a blessing to the community that now that they are still busy facing the drought, they are able to go to the conservancy, get some fodder that they can use for their animals. So I think the support of EDA and the interaction and the approach that they have throughout from the full implementation of the project, it's quite really good. But we just need to see how we can up a bit into ensuring that communities are well capacitated with intensive programs by supporting entities, so that this can replicate to any new leaders that are coming into their leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackson, for that. Last but not least, Ms. Erica, just for a minute, what are some of the recommendations you can make to the listeners that are listening in here who want to replicate some of the work we're doing in Namibia?
Okay, thank you very much once again. I wanted to must I not give the challenges?
I think since we have run out of time,
Okay.
when they've been covered, we can just move on to the recommendations.
Okay, I will do perhaps ask the EIF or supportive entity to help us in funding, supporting financial assistance with funding. If there's a case where some of our conservancies, they are really in need of support, we don't have any way where we can go, or even to assist us in some advising where we should go to have funds, because now this project to make us, our community, to have to see that the conservancy is moving on, but there is only a little funding which is coming in the conservancy. So only supporting entity to help us in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Let me just take this time to appreciate the respective leaders from the conservancies who make time to join us. I hope that we've really now given you an overview and perspective of what this project did. You've heard from the people who benefited from this project. At this point in time, I'd like to hand over to Toini to just provide us with the end of session remarks as well as acknowledgements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bernadette, and to our speakers who have joined us and also provided some insights about the EDA project in terms of the challenges and successes of the overall project implementation in Namibia. Of course, we could see that there are a lot of lessons that we can learn from, and perhaps some modalities that we can also imbibe in some of the upcoming projects and entities that are looking towards implementing a similar approach. And of course, funding is always limited, but we can always try to stress it and provide it to angles that could improve sustainability of community projects in the long run. And of course, from supporting entities, we could see issues around, of course, the CPNRM approach is a Namibian way of giving the rights to communities to manage resources. And they do already have a governance level of how long their committees are supposed to run. And of course, in that area, we cannot actually stress to say the EDA failed. The EDA project failed because of the governance structure, because that has been an existing structure as part of the CBN approach. But we can definitely learn from that. Largely also, we could also see from the background of the pictures that have been shared, some of the benefits that communities have derived from the project, but we should try to but we can try as much as to learn from some of the limitations and try to improve on them for upcoming projects that looks at or that are looking at working with communities or extending funding at grassroots level, and also to acknowledge project ownership at the community level to ensure that communities are able to implement these approaches over a long period of time, and that the ideas are there to solve some of their situations or underlying issues that they have been facing over a long period of time. So once again, thank you so much to our panelists, our speakers, our moderator, Bernadette, and also for all of you who has joined into this session to just understand what the Namibian EDA project approach was all about. You can find more information about the EDA project, of course, under the GCF website, under the Environmental Investment Fund of Namibia. It is one of the pilot projects or the 3 pilot projects of the GCF, and of course, one of Namibia's first approach. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. You can also just try to reach out to us if you also want to learn more about the successes, or maybe speak to us directly, because some of us have also visited as observers some of the projects that have been benefited, and we can also really share some insight of what can be avoided and what can we do better to make sure that communities are streamlined in taking climate actions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in. We are signing out from Namibia.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you all. Bye.
Have a good day.